Only a few short years ago, the vegan movement was at an all-time high. Every fast food chain across the country was launching their very own plant-based meats. Vegan influencers were garnering a huge number of views online, and there really seemed to be a shift in the broader cultural landscape towards a more plant-based diet. But today, we are seeing the pendulum swing in the opposite direction. The carnivore diet, which was really not a thing before, is the latest food phenomenon. Plant-based options are getting canceled, flagship meat companies are struggling, and the social landscape of veganism has fallen off of a cliff. Veganism as a fad or a trend was always likely to fall from its high, but with everything that's going on in the world, veganism has just lost its appeal for a lot of people, including myself. Today's video is sponsored by Ground News. So if you look at the Google Trend forecast for the term vegan since 2004, it's down from its peak, and for some time now. Nearly a quarter of New York City's vegan restaurants closed permanently between 2022 and 2024 alone, and other vegan bulwarks like Portland and LA are not far behind. Gonna be honest, that was the first time I've ever used the term bulwark, and I don't like it. But right off the top, let's clarify some of the clickbait that we used for the title of this video. Obviously, veganism and plant-based foods are not completely dead as a category, let's just say. But in this video, I want to talk about how the social movement that surrounded this lifestyle has changed so dramatically in the last couple of years. Now, as I hinted off the top, I have a personal take on this because I posted a few videos about plant-based eating in the peak years of the movement back on my old channel. Now, notice I said plant-based there instead of vegan. We're gonna come back to that a little bit later. Veganism was a part of a socially conscious movement that was happening on the internet generally for a while, right? We had zero waste, we had the minimalist movement, and then we had veganism right there, all happening around the same time. We have also made videos about those other two subjects as well if you are interested in seeing those things, and those videos might actually give you some additional context to what we're talking about right now. But weirdly, in the brainstorming for this video, we realized that all three of us on this channel have been some level of vegan or plant-based in the past.
Have we all dabbled with veganism? Is that what I'm hearing right now?
I didn't eat meat for probably 2 or 3 years.
And Matthew,
Yeah.
you were fully vegan.
I was vegan, I think like 3 or 4 years, and I'm still vegetarian.
I would say that Leah and I eat probably 60 to 80% vegan, depending on the week. It varies quite a lot. Like if we're on the road, we eat more meat, and when we live by ourselves, like we're living with her parents right now, so we eat a lot more meat because they eat meat. You know, that's not good enough. That doesn't build a community. There's no community built around 80%ers. You know, there's no like cohesion amongst people who just try their best.
That's the thing about veganism that nobody really talks about, because like you don't really realize until you go vegan. It's like a socially isolating process. You're cut off from eating out with friends and family who are going to like a place that doesn't serve vegan food.
So no, today we don't meet the technical definition of plant-based or vegan anymore, but we still probably eat less meat and dairy than the average North American does. But the reality is, we're not the only ones. What you eat, and more importantly, why you eat what you eat, has always been a politically and socially entangled thing, right? But perhaps none more so than the vegan movement. There has never been, to my knowledge, a diet that has been more divisive and controversial than veganism. And I also want to say, like, not all vegans are like the confrontational, judgmental stereotypes that people assume veganism is all about. But regardless of how anyone in the movement expressed themselves, for a lot of people, veganism started around one movie. I watched Cowspiracy in 2015, and it genuinely was the thing that pushed me to rethink my eating. I started eating plant-based basically the day after I watched that movie, because it was literally the first time I'd ever seen the industrial food system exposed in that way. And I know for a lot of other people, that movie and a few others that came out around the same time were a real turning point. And for most people who watched that movie, going vegan was too hard to commit to, or they tried for a little bit and eventually gave up. But for many people, the very real horrors of our industrialized food system were exposed, and it made eating vegan about more than just eating a certain way. People were coming out to their family members as vegan. People were losing friends over their dietary choices, and this label of vegan became a symbol of the kind of person that you were, and it needed to be defended. People had vegan tattoos on their body, they had vegan as their Instagram bio names, and the choice you made at the dinner table was suddenly a lot more than just a personal preference. And as I said off the top, I really don't think that there has been a diet that created the kind of tension amongst people since. And it was a really weird time to be a creator too. So yes, I dabbled in the space. I have some insight here, but I will be honest that a big part of the reason why I made those videos, and I only made a couple of them, was because the term vegan and plant-based had a lot of momentum behind it on YouTube at the time. I made a what I eat in a day video and a grocery haul video, and mostly I think I was doing it because I was trying to get videos any way that I could, and it was justified in some way because it aligned with the message that I was promoting at the time, which was around sustainability. But the reason why I never identified myself as a vegan content creator or leaned more heavily into that community online is because of the divisive nature of the vegan conversation around that time. Have you seen the debate of vegan videos? Of course you have. Have you, or like ones about, vegans getting owned, by some conservative cowboy or like a meat industry rep or something. And I think even to this day, it feels like there's so much more energy put into the debating of the moral implications of eating meat than the ways that we can actually reduce our meat consumption as a culture. Funnily enough, we asked the people on our Discord about this idea. We told them that we're making a video about veganism, and then literally within minutes, there was a full-on argument happening within the thread, which I think just perfectly encapsulates how impossible it is to have a rational conversation about this topic. And I really do think that it is this highly emotional, right and wrong, black and white kind of thinking that surrounded veganism that led to its failure. Entire industries are being affected by the switch away from a purist vegan culture. A great example of this would be how 11 Madison Park, a 3 Michelin star restaurant in New York City that has been plant-based since 2021, has just started serving meat again. And we found this story on Ground News. It's an app and a website dedicated to gathering thousands of news articles from all around the world and putting them in one place. We have been working with them for over a year now, and we keep working with them because we love their platform, and we think that you will too. So go check them out at ground.news/LH. Look at the language being used in these articles. As we can see here, Bloomberg, a left-leaning source, features the title, "The Big Restaurant That Failed Veganism," making it all seem like a moral failing. Meanwhile, American Wire News, which is right on the political spectrum, starts off their title with, "More Proof Woke is Dead." Right there, you can totally see where things are going before you even click on the title. There's 30 plus articles featured here, and we can also see the level of factuality for all of them, as well as who they're backed by. We believe that it is actually worth taking the extra step to subscribe to a nonpartisan news platform that'll go the extra mile to keep you informed, and that's why we love Ground News. So we encourage you to dive right in by going to ground.news/LH, or you can scan this QR code to get yourself started. You can join for less than $1 a month, or use the link in our description to get 40% off their unlimited access Vantage plan, which is what we use. Thanks again to Ground News for the continued support. Now let's get back into this story. As I said off the top, I am not saying that veganism or plant-based eating is dead completely. In fact, I would make the bet that what we are seeing is the progression towards a more sustainable version of that category, but we'll get into that later. Right now, I want to talk about why I think the trend fell off in the way that it did. And first, of course, is the controversial nature of the movement itself.
Vegan donut.
Even if you weren't one of those vegans, you were associated with the vegans who believed that it was was them against the meat eaters.
Why is it always the
But think about
extreme
this.
case when talking about would I kill an animal? Like,
yeah, exactly.
if you were in this situation.
There aren't lions running around downtown LA.
This, of course, just created an us versus them dynamic, which is not a great position for a food trend to make a lasting positive impression. This all or nothing, in or out kind of tribe mentality was just not a good vibe. Even Impossible Foods, one of the biggest players in the alternative meat industry, has admitted that this kind of marketing was the wrong way to create a sustainable market. The CEO said, "It was against the cattle industry. It was against the slaughter cartel. If you ate meat, you were a Neanderthal. We were insulting meat eaters." Since realizing this, they've pivoted towards flexitarian, aka people who eat some plant-based and animal products from time to time. And they're even pushing now a hybrid burger that's 50% beef. Secondly, it was the way in which the capitalist machine took a hold of this movement. The explosion and the gold rush that we saw around every single meat company and startup on planet Earth rushing to produce their own vegan products just made it feel so forced to non-vegans, and it honestly produced some pretty questionable products. And we actually have a whole video on the rise and fall of these fake meat products if you want to go check that out next. And look, I'll admit, I ate a bunch of those Beyond Burgers, man, and every single time I shit my pants. I don't know if it's just me, but it's hard to convince somebody to eat a new fancy plant-based burger when their body just liquidates after eating it. And this explosion of popularity with mainstream brands and companies also sort of made it a widespread political ideology. People started identifying themselves as not vegans.
I like meat! I don't like vegetables!
And even anti-vegan. Veganism became synonymous with queer people, environmentalists, femininity, and in some ways, the radical left as a whole. And this is just a whole other level of the vegan trend that once again has never happened with another food trend in the past. And that is the protests and the activism, especially centering around PETA. And honestly, there was already enough fuel on this fire, but this just took it to a whole other level. Whether it was comparing animal agriculture to the Holocaust, comparing animal agriculture to slavery, or just constantly making headlines with their public displays all around the world, PETA put a very radical spin on this already unconventional lifestyle. And the worst part is that PETA actually did some pretty smart stuff that never got any of those headlines. They had a strategy where they would buy shares in food companies in order to pressure their board into offering vegan options or to end animal testing. This was apparently a big factor in Ralph Lauren dropping fur in 2006, but that's not what we heard about. Instead, this activism likely pushed us even further in the opposite direction to where we find ourselves today. COVID, of course, was a huge shift for this movement. Suddenly, everybody is skeptical of everything that's going on in the world in a way that we hadn't seen before. Paleo as a diet was starting to gain some popularity, and with it was this renewed skepticism of processed foods, probably partially driven by all of the new plant-based foods that we were inventing around that time. Suddenly, people started seeing simplicity as the answer, but something got lost in translation here. The answer wasn't, hey, let's start cooking more and focus on ingredients that we can all recognize as food. Suddenly, healthy eating was about eating as few things as possible, and the only real focus seemed to be on meat. We talked about the carnivore diet in our protein video, and that video is in some ways sort of like a prequel to this one, because I really don't think that either of those trends would have happened if it wasn't for the vegan trend that preceded it. This is the bipolar world of trends today that is just so hard to keep up with. It's easier for the internet to go from vegan to carnivore than it is to go from vegan to vegetarian. Like I would say in the last 10 years, I have ranged between 50 to like 95% plant-based, but I can't explain that in a video because we don't seem to understand nuance anymore. There's no community around the 80%ers or the 60%ers or the trying our fucking besters, you know? The internet has kind of fucked up our ability to see the nuances and the in-betweens in life, which is unfortunately the majority of it. Like if all you're seeing is like vegan gets owned videos on one side and then my vegan grocery haul videos on the other side, you're missing the vast majority of the people on Earth in the middle who just don't give a shit and are probably just eating somewhere in between there. But there is no merch for those people. There's no call to action for those people. A guy eating like 20 pounds of meat in one sitting is obviously going to get more views online than just somebody showing you how to cook normally. Retention and microtrends are becoming baked into our real life decision making, and it's just making everything so much harder to interpret. That's why it's so easy for scammers and influencers to sell you garbage online, because it's harder than ever to know what the hell is real and what isn't. It's a reaction to the hyperstimulation of our online era.
Lizard, lizard, lizard.
And what is so weird about the carnivore diet in particular is that it has a lot of the same social challenges that veganism does. Showing up to a family dinner and only eating the meat is kind of weird. Preaching the health benefits of only eating meat is weird. Only eating Walmart steaks for every meal of the day is weird. And because you're isolating yourself with this food choice from everybody else around you, if you see another fellow carnivore slipping out of their diet, you've got to call them out, just like the vegans did. And probably the biggest aspect of this is exhaustion. It is truly a luxury to be able to eat plant-based. It takes time and effort and money to make these kinds of specific choices about what we eat in a day, and the world is on fire. Like, it's really not a chill time to be alive. And so for a lot of people, what you eat on a day-to-day basis was the easiest way for them to simplify and make their life a little bit more manageable. And veganism just doesn't fit into that. I don't think that veganism's decline has anything to do with people's lack of empathy for animals or our lack of interest in preserving the people and the planet that we live on, but rather a contextual response to the stresses that we feel nowadays. And until we fix that system, nothing else is going to change. That was a bit of a bummer, guys. Thanks for sticking around to the end, even with the re-record. If you're subscribed, we will see you next week for yet another upload.